I would like to hear again the word which followed realization, the state of consciousness which included prayer. If I understand correctly, it was our reference to the fact that realization is demonstration. Realization is demonstration. You see, we might make a statement that God is all in all, and God is the all-power, and error is not power, and nothing happened. Nobody be healed of anything, and nobody feel any better, because with that statement there was no realization. It was just an intellectual statement. It was just something that went through the mind. Now, the mind is not God. The mind is not spiritual power, and thoughts certainly are not power. God's thoughts are not your thoughts. Who, by taking thought, can add to a stature 1 cubit, or make 1 white hair black? Therefore, something more than statements of truth are necessary to bring about demonstration. And the missing link is the word realization. Now, if I make the statement, God is all, and the only power, and that which appears to us as evil is not power, there's only one law, the law of God. Harmony is the divine law. And now I sit back and wait, and then feel this presence of God within me. That is God realized. Now something will take place. Now something can be expected to take place, and it will. It may be anything from an instantaneous healing to just a slight relief. But something will happen. And as this work is continued, this work of realization, improvement takes place, and eventually the complete healing. Now, always remember this. Most of the failure in all metaphysical work, wherever there is any failure, all takes place because students believe that reading a book or affirming a truth is going to do something. And it really isn't. All of the reading of books and the affirming of statements, all of this is preliminary. It is merely done to bring us to a state of consciousness where we can settle down, be at peace, and wait for the grace of God or the feeling of God to be upon us. Then these miracles of healing take place. If this were not true, then you or I could be healers. Then the Master would not be true when he said, I can of my own self do nothing. Certainly there's none of us expecting to go beyond his demonstration. And he said, I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. And so it is with us. If our statements of truth would heal anybody, then we would be the healer. Then we would be the ones doing the work. And then we could say, how wonderful am I? But you see, there's no provision for that. It cannot be so. Only God can dissolve the errors of sense. And it is brought about by our realization of God's presence. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, where the consciousness of God's presence is, there is liberty. Now, if all the discord is the result of our own consciousness, who is responsible for a spastic baby? The one point that was not clear in last night's class, when I said that all discord is the result of our consciousness, is the fact that consciousness is not merely individually yours and mine, but it is universal. Therefore, you will remember that I said that it isn't only the sins in our consciousness that cause our discords, but our ignorance. Therefore, when couples conceive, in the human picture, outside of the metaphysical world, they haven't any idea what is going to come forth. It could be a healthy child. It could be 5 healthy children. That has happened too. But it could be a mentally deformed child or a physically deformed child. Nobody knows when conception takes place what is going to happen. You can't tell until it happens, and then it's too late. Now, this is due to our ignorance, the very ignorance I spoke of last night that is responsible for the world's ills. When couples who have been metaphysically taught or spiritually taught, when they conceive, there should be little or no possibility of physical or mental deformities in their children. Why? Number one, when a couple has even a slight understanding of a spiritual teaching, they do not approach their sex relationships as humans ordinarily do, from a purely animalistic standpoint or a standpoint merely of physical satisfaction or physical pleasure. Usually where there is some trace of spiritual knowledge, there is a great feeling of tenderness, of love, of devotion, of givingness before the act of sex takes place, and then instead of merely a human experience, a spiritual one accompanies the human. And right there, we're lifted above the ordinary sense of conception. When there is a spiritual love, when there is an understanding of God, when there is a livingness with the Christ, couples then in their intimate relationships are on a far higher standpoint of ground than the couple who are thinking nothing more nor less than terms of personal gratification. That in itself begins to change the result. But beyond that, there is another step. All error, every bit of evil that comes into this world, comes in because not so much the individual sense of sin as the universal world mesmerism, that which Paul called the carnal mind. The carnal mind is enmity against God. And it is the carnal mind that is responsible for our sins, our evils, our diseases, our lacks. But if you are a metaphysician who has been well taught, you have learned that the carnal mind is not a power, is not a creator, and therefore can produce no evil. Now we come to the great mystery. I gave you this last night as a starter and said, in the message of the infinite way, we do not have a power of good that overcomes evil. We do not have the power of God to destroy sin or disease or lack. In the message of the infinite way, we acknowledge God as the only power. Now, I know that there is that which Paul called the carnal mind. I know that there is that which Mrs. Eddy called mortal mind. But I say to you that carnal mind or mortal mind is not power, but is a universal belief which has been accepted as power. And it has been accepted as power since the days when Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden, because they accepted the power of good and of evil and started this whole world of human discords by having two powers. Now, if a couple are planning a family and they are metaphysically or spiritually taught, and in their daily periods of meditation they are realizing this: God makes all that is made, and what God does not make is not made. Therefore the carnal mind, the mind of lust, animality, hate, envy, jealousy, is not a creator and is not creating our child. God is. And we as father and mother are the instruments through which God will deliver us a child. That which is called carnal mind, mortal mind, will not enter this conception or this birth, for the very relationship between me and my wife is love, and love is of God, and there's no animality in that, no carnality in that. There is just the joy of union, oneness. Do you see the difference in approaching life with one power, and that power God, or just going out blindly driving a car and saying, I hope there are no bad drivers on the road? giving power to two. When you are driving a car or planning a family, or when you are going down to your business, or when you are marketing or caring for your household duties, you must have clearly in your consciousness that you are living with the principle of one power. And you acknowledge that if there is a carnal mind, as Paul discovered, which is enmity against God, or if there is a mortal mind, which Mrs. Eddy discovered causes disease, then you must take the next step and say, yes, perhaps they do exist, but not as power, not as authority, not with the grace of God, not with the life of God, and they are not sustained by any law of God. Do you follow that? But unless you are as positive in your realization of this as I am delivering it to you, you're wishy-washy. You got a little of God going around here and a little mortal mind over here. But when you come to the realization that you accept God, when you come to the realization that you're willing to accept Jesus Christ as he who outlined the whole of truth, then you will say with him, Pilate, thou hast no power over me. Or to the crippled man, what did hinder you? Come on. Mortal mind is not a power. Carnal mind is not a power. Paul got himself into trouble on his trips. He built up that carnal mind so great that it was always battling him. And he was always battling it. And the same thing happened in Christian Science to a lot of very fine students. They got so far and fast into battling mortal mind and trying to overcome it that it finally threw them. You cannot battle error successfully, for the only error there is what you're creating in your own mind, and your own mind is sustaining it. Not that you as an individual did it, the carnal mind did, or mortal mind, which you accept as power. When you come to the message of the infinite way, you come to certain principles which were given to me through 16 years of practice. Now, I wasn't the first one to get them. I make no claim to originality. Some of them come back even from the days before Jesus Christ, and many during his time and some later. But out of 16 years of practicing healing work day and night, I learned certain principles. Those principles are incorporated in the message of the infinite way, and you are not following the infinite way unless you are following those principles. Now, merely reading the books and finding some inspirational passages and saying how beautiful, how wonderful, as far as I'm concerned, that's a waste of time. I acknowledge the beauty of inspiration, but I also say to you that it won't make your demonstration. Your demonstration is made on the principles you learn and apply. Now, by far, the greatest principle that revealed itself to me during my 16 years of healing and the 12 years that have gone by since is this principle of one power. So that while I am not absolute, in the sense that I'm going to say, oh, there is no error, I am going to say to you, God is the only power, and God is the only law. Therefore, material power and mental power, material law and mental law, and even legal law, this is all the carnal mind or mortal mind, and it is not power. And when you accept that and learn day by day to work with it, well, let me give you an illustration. We brought this up in London. You'll hear it in the London tapes, that wherever you speak to healers in England, they will tell you that 80% of all the physical claims that come to them are rheumatism or arthritis. The reason is, of course, that the climate, the weather of England is supposed to be very productive of rheumatism and arthritis. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is this: is weather or climate a power? Well, if you look around at all the people who are sick from it, then the answer must be yes. But then that's judging after appearances. Now, let's judge righteous judgment and say, how can it be if God is infinite? How can weather and climate produce rheumatism if God is spirit and spirit is all there is? If God is law and God is infinite, then the spiritual law must be infinite. How can climate be a law? How can weather be a law? Now, rheumatism and arthritis aren't thrown aside just as quickly as making that statement. It takes strength to be able, in the presence of rheumatism and arthritis, day in and day out, to say, I will not believe the evidence of my senses. I stand on the fact that carnal mind, mortal mind, isn't power. God is power. Spiritual law is the only law, not weather, not climate. So it is. If we are well taught, and if we work with the principles given to us, we know from experience that 80 to 90% of the world's problems do not come nigh our doorstep, our dwelling place. You might say, why not 100%? Only for one reason. We haven't yet attained that high degree of Christ consciousness, of realization of one power. And therefore, this world hypnotism, which Paul called carnal mind and Mrs. Eddy called mortal mind, will once in a while intrude itself into our lives, and so you'll find any of us at some time or other with a problem. With our understanding of one power, we meet it. Or as I say, we certainly meet 80 to 90% of them, and at this stage that is not doing too badly. One day, some one of us probably will have a realization so great of the fact that there is only one power and one law that we will dissipate 100% of all the world's discords and inharmonies. But I'm giving you now the principle with which to work. Always remember this. A spastic baby, a mentally deformed baby, a physically deformed baby, a morally deformed baby, is the product of carnal mind or mortal mind. And in the human picture, you and I are not responsible for this because we have accepted from Adam and Eve the belief in two powers, good and evil. And unconsciously or subconsciously, we have accepted the carnal mind or mortal mind as a power, and we're suffering from it. Now, I may say this to you. Anything of which you're suffering at this moment, or any of your friends or any of your relatives, or patients or students, you're not suffering from rheumatism, you're not suffering from spastic babies, you're not suffering from headaches, you're suffering from carnal mind accepted as a power. Call it carnal mind, call it mortal mind, anything you like. We consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously have accepted two powers, the power of God and the power of this sum total called carnal mind or mortal mind. To nullify error in your experience, and then in your relatives and friends' experience, and then your patients and students, you begin not to treat rheumatism, and not to treat spastic babies, not to treat blindness, not to treat immorality, not to treat homosexuality, which is filling the newspapers. Treat the belief that carnal mind or mortal mind is power. Do you follow that? You have only one demonstration to make. That is the realization of the presence of God. But you only have one devil to overcome. And it isn't rheumatism or cancer or consumption or immorality or poverty or unemployment. If you have an unemployed relative or friend or patient or student, don't treat them for unemployment. Just remember, it's the carnal mind that says there is lack and limitation or lack of opportunity or lack of something in God's kingdom. And then realize that carnal mind isn't power. If you have a business and business isn't good, don't treat for good business. Just treat the belief that carnal mind and its suggestions are power. Do you see that? All of our healing work in the message of the infinite way, and this is what has carried this message all around the world. It is what has caused two London publishers to publish our writings in England, and one in Holland, and one in Germany, and one in New York, and no more in California. Only one thing has done it. We have a principle that works. And the principle is this. You have one demonstration to make. The consciousness of the presence of God. For in its presence, the carnal mind dissolves. You have only one sin, disease, death, lack, or limitation to treat: the carnal mind. Whether you call it carnal mind of Paul or you call it mortal mind of Mrs. Eddy, it makes no difference. You can call it other names. In my writings you'll find it under the name of hypnotism, suggestion, mesmerism, world belief, appearances. It all means the same thing. It means a belief that there is a destructive power. Do you see that? And that's all we're suffering from, any of us. We are only suffering from a belief which we consciously or unconsciously have accepted in two powers. Supposing you became convinced this instant that God is the only power, now what could bother you? Nothing. 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 A whole circus full of wild lions could be turned loose in this room and you wouldn't get up to move out of the way. Because you say, well, what difference does it make if there's only one power? Do you see that? If bombs were falling right and left, you'd say, what difference does it make if there is only one power? And you would be right. If there is only one power, what can bombs do? Or wild lions? Or germs, or weather, or climate? Do you see that? Now, that is the simplicity of the message of the infinite way, that you only have one enemy. It isn't carnal mind or mortal mind, it's the belief that they're power. And when you've overcome the belief that they're power, they're finished as far as you're concerned. And then you don't have to demonstrate supply. You don't have to demonstrate health. You don't have to demonstrate happiness. You don't ever demonstrate companionship. You demonstrate the realization of God's presence. And then you'll find that thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. So all you need is God's grace realized. And it fulfills itself in all things. You don't have to go around enumerating them. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. Does this speak of man's pre-existence? No. This speaks of the ability to perceive, to receive this truth. If, for instance, you now are able to receive this truth that I am giving you about the one power and the non-power of the carnal mind, your receiving that truth makes you the child of God, because it frees you from two powers. And of course the child of God knows only one power. So it is. When the Master walked the earth, there were those who said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, or if they didn't think of it in that way, at least they felt in their hearts, this man is true. This man is real. This message is the right. They received him. But the others who said, oh no, we know who this is. His mother is Mary and his father is Joseph and he's a carpenter. So those did not receive him, and they could not become the children of God because they could not accept this message. So it is today. If you can feel in your heart that God is the only living reality, and that beside God there is no power, and that everything of a discordant nature that shows its face on the surface of the earth is nothing but a picture of the carnal mind, and that isn't power, you have received the Christ message of, what did hinder you? Pick up your bed and walk. There's no power. You have received the message of healing blindness with spittle. Why? Is spittle power? No. Blindness is no power. Do you follow that? He didn't heal blindness with spittle because spittle is power. He healed it with spittle because spittle isn't power and blindness isn't power. In other words, blindness is the carnal mind again, which the blind man was accepting as power, and his parents and his friends. But one with God is a majority, and that one says, nonsense, carnal mind isn't power. Open your eyes. And he opened his eyes. Last night you drew our attention to the fact that without our help the sun will rise and the sun will set. God is about his business. This gives me a sense of limitation. I feel that the sun may not rise. You missed the point. I brought out last night that the sun neither rises nor sets of itself, that there must be a spiritual impetus behind it which makes it rise and set, and therefore makes it utterly impossible that the time will ever come when it doesn't rise and set. Now, so far as our world is concerned, it may stop. That's perfectly true. But that will in no wise change the fact that in its spiritual activity, whatever it is infinite and eternal. And any outward change is but a product of that spiritual impetus behind it. And I'm going to illustrate that for you because our subject tonight is immortality. Probably you haven't suspected it up to this moment. I really want you to go home tonight completely aware of the fact that we are immortal, that we have never been born, and that we will never die. And there is only one way that I can bring this to your attention. Actually, there's a question here. Do you believe in reincarnation? The answer to that would have to be yes and no, because there are two aspects to the subject, both of which must be covered. From the standpoint of God as life, there could be no reincarnation because there is no incarnation. God as individual life is from everlasting to everlasting, from the beginning to the end. It never incarnates, so it can never reincarnate. It is just a state of divine being. But that would be a denial of the fact that you and I are here right now in what appears to us to be human form. And so it is that we realize that with this belief of good and evil, there came into the world this idea of a human life, born and dying. You remember that also began with Adam and Eve. Now, Adam wasn't born, and neither was Eve. Neither one were conceived humanly. So you see that in their true existence, they weren't incarnated and couldn't be reincarnated. But with the belief of good and evil, there comes Cain and Abel, or human creation. Now, since even the showing forth of our bodies is really a testimony to the fact that life is present, then our bodies, the appearance that we have here, is but a cover-up, a hiding of the life that we really are. And so it is that we, in our human sense, have carnated, and we will reincarnate, for the simple reason that we are living a life within a life. It is as if there were two of us. This one that sits here talking, and then the real one, which is really the intelligence, the life, the being of my individual self. I, in my true identity, have never been born, I will never die, and I cannot be reborn. That part of me, which is visible to you as Joel, was born into our belief of two powers and will pass out of it and will reincarnate unless during this lifetime I come into the realization of my true identity, then I will have to reincarnate, because being in that make-believe life of Joel, it will keep on making believe and making believe and making believe over and over and over again until it dies daily a final death. Now let me reveal to you how that is. When you look at a tree, and I will ask you to follow me now, try to visualize a tree. See some tree that you are familiar with. And at this period of the year, it is covered with leaves. It has a very healthy-looking bark. Now, if that were the tree, then a few months from now the tree will be dead, because the leaves won't be there and the bark won't look so live. It'll have all the appearance of death. But you see, that isn't the tree you're looking at. That is only the body of the tree. The tree itself is invisible. The life of the tree is invisible. And even in the dead of winter, when that tree looks dead enough to be buried, barren enough to be thrown away, you will know it isn't true. A few months more and spring will come, and leaves will be there, and the healthy bark will be there, and if it's a fruit tree, the fruit will come. In other words, you will know that all invisible to sight is the tree, the life. And that what you behold with your eyes is but a form. And the form changes, but the life doesn't. Now you'll come back to us, and you'll see this body, and if you judge by appearances, you'll think that we're dying, because each day some of the skin sloughs off. Each day some hair falls out. Each day some cuticle falls away or nail gets cut away. Do you think that's me or you? No, no. That's just blood and bones and a hank of hair. No, this is just form. And some of it's dying every single day and being reborn again. But am I dying every day and being reborn? No. No, I am intact. I am complete. Now, someday each one of you will have to realize what I am saying to you, which I have realized. I am I. I am I. I am that I am. I am that. And I always have been. And I always will be. Now, should the day come when instead of this just sloughing off a little each day, if the whole thing wants to drop away, I will still be I. And there'll be no need for me to reincarnate, because I have already died to the belief that this is me. I know that this is only the bark you're looking at, the outer skin. This is not me. No, you can't see Joel. If you want a glimpse of Joel, you can catch it. Look right into his eyes, and if you see a light, that's Joel back there. But this is only the instrument that he's walking around with. This is only the vehicle. This is only a visible form. But Joel himself isn't in it. You see, I had an experience, and you may have the same, but you will have to follow the same exercise that I did, and then you too may get free of your body. Now follow me in this. Look down at your feet. And ask yourself the question, is that me down there? Or are those my feet? Now, if that question and answer are clear to you, you know that those feet are not you, that they are yours. And so now we have set up feet and you. Now we've got two, haven't we? You and your feet. But you aren't your feet, are you? No, no, no. But you have feet, haven't you? Then there is a you, which is not identified with feet. Now go up to your knees and look at that whole space from your feet to your knees, and ask yourself, is that me? Or are those limbs mine? And there again we have a me and we have my limbs. And now go to your waist and ask yourself, is that me or mine? And we still have me separate from the body. And all the way up, travel up the whole body until you get way up here at the topmost hair of your head. Is this me or is this mine? Now you mustn't be afraid of your body, and don't be ashamed of it. Travel up and down your own body. Become convinced that the body isn't you, but there is a you which possesses this body. And now, have you found you anywhere inside that body? Have you found you in your feet? Have you found you in your stomach? Have you found you in your breast? Have you found you in your head? No. And if you're faithful, you'll discover that you are not in your body. You are not in any part of your body from your toenails up to the topmost hair of your head. There is no you there. Search as you will. I know surgeons have certainly operated every part of the human form that can be reached, and they haven't found anybody hidden in there yet. For you are not in your body, and you are not your body. Who are you? Who do men say that I am? Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Thou art what Moses said thou art. I am that I am. And Jesus repeated it. I am that I am. I am not in body. I am not body. I am me. I am I. And body is an instrument, like the shape of the tree, like the bark of the tree, the root of the tree, the leaves of the tree. An instrument showing forth the glory of an invisible tree. And so are we. We are showing forth the glory of an invisible I, which I am. That I that is one with God. I and my Father are one, not two. I and my Father are one. I am that I am. I am about my Father's business, living my Father's life. My Father is living my life. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. My doctrine is not mine. My life is not mine. My intelligence is not mine. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. God is the mind of me, the life of me, the soul of me, the being of me, and even my body is the temple of the living God. Is this clear? Now, once you begin to perceive, I am I, and I and my Father are one, therefore all that God is, I am. All that the Father hath is mine. And this body is the temple. You will find your entire body changing. You will find your entire outlook on life changing. And you'll know that if they cut off a finger, I will still be I. If they cut off an arm, I will still be I. If they just keep hacking away at this body, I will still be I. And then if someday they want to throw it in the furnace, I will still be I, because I am not body and I am not in body. And you'll only know that by dwelling on I. I. And then you see, you'll begin to understand why Jesus Christ could say to you, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the bread and the wine and the water. I am life eternal. I am life eternal. You see, if he was talking about a man who lived 2,000 years ago, he's already been proved a liar, hasn't he? Because he isn't around. But if he was speaking of I, then he told the truth. For I am still around. I am still around as me, and I am still around as you. I am still around as Jesus. I am still around as all of the unborn children of the world. I am that I am. I and my Father are one, not two. I and my Father are one. There is only one I am, and I am. Would you deny that I am? That would be denying my existence, and I'm talking to you. So you know I am. And there is only one I am. And I am that I am. And I am that I am as Joel, Mary, Bill, Emma, whoever you may be. I am that. And all you have to do is search your body from head to foot and learn that you're not there. You're not in the body, and you're not the body. I am I, and I cannot find myself confined in space. And then someday you'll have an experience and learn that you're neither in space nor in time, but that you exist beyond time and beyond space. And then you'll know the secret of pre-existence. You will know that before Abraham was, I am. And I will be with you unto the end of the world. Whether I, Joel, say that or I, you, say that. For there is only one I in this room. There is only one I on this earth. And that I is the identity of those who have gone out of our physical sight. And it is our identity, and it is the identity of those still unborn. I was with you before Abraham was. I will be with you to the end of the world. And if you remember that, you can demonstrate your immortality. This is the light that sent me into this world with the message of the infinite way. This is the light that changed a businessman into a world traveler with a spiritual message. This is the light that financed it and still finances it. This truth, this light, not confined to space, not confined to time, not confined to any sum of money. Travel the world unfettered and free about my Father's business, for I and my Father are one, and I am that one. For I exist, that means I am, and I eat eternally am. And then I look in the mirror and I search my body and I say, no, I cannot find me there. I am not there. I am not body. I am not in the body, for I am I, and I exist beyond time and beyond space. And this is immortality. Thank you until tomorrow night.